day struggle trying to get fed. Need a spot at the table for my daily bread. Wonder why we thuggin' though we misled. It's no we dog when we tryna break the daily bread. You can't feel the hunger through an op-ed. They gon' cover how we suffer for the daily bread. Sometimes that pressure make me feel like I'ma lose my head.
Put it down a little bit.
Waking up to the traffic in the sunrise. Just another day trying to strategize. Mama running late for work, thinking strike two. Third job this year, cause it's nothing new. Trying to stay in school, trying to learn something. It's hard to get your mind right when your ribs touch. Teacher think I'm mugging, that's just hunger pain. I'm being cinematic, but it's Hunger Games. Try to play it off, mute the suffering, but my stomach break the silence when it's rumbling. So it's quarter cakes, chips, and ramens. Hunger is something one of five shorties got in common. Hit up corner stores, no fresh markets around. Sustaining from the shelf, no food straight from the ground. Multiply that times all the hoods in my town. We playing in the field, but nobody working the ground. Still an everyday struggle trying to get fed. Need a spot at the table for my daily bread. Wonder why we thuggin' though we misled. It's no we dog when we tryna break the daily bread. You can't feel the hunger through an op-ed. They gon' cover how we suffer for the daily bread. Sometimes the pressure make me feel like I'ma lose my head. To make sure my MCs get that daily bread.
Some straight they bread up from the crumbs left on the table. Sipping pot, licking the ease that rumbling coming from behind the table. You making that bread when you need your own dough. And the sharpest knife in the road and get a slice off that loaf. It's the life that I chose, but it's life that chose me. You see, my daddy was a soldier and my mama a G. I'm talking integrity, legacy, how to march when I step. If Granny cooked it, all you heard was to nothing left. Heard scrape on the plate, but if you don't work, you don't eat. You gotta earn your own keep. What a man sows is what a man reaps. Daddy took his machete, then he handed to me and said keep swinging and chopping until the way I can see. Adorn the armor of God when I step on the street, knowing the Lord protected me from my head to my feet. When Daddy took his old machete, then he handed to me and said keep swinging and chopping until the way I can see my daily bread.
Still an everyday struggle trying to get fed. Need a spot at the table for my daily bread. Wonder why we thuggin' though we misled. It's no we dog when we tryna break the daily bread. You can't feel the hunger through an op-ed. They gon' cover how we suffer for the daily bread. Sometimes that pressure make me feel like I'ma lose my head. To make sure my young seeds get their daily bread.
Good morning, B1AGers. How's it growing? What's growing on? I hope you're doing well this morning. I'm coming back to you again with another episode of B1AG. You know, here we try to bring you practical agricultural solutions to a lot of our problems that we are facing today. And we focus on Black agriculture, agricultural production, education, marketing, food, nutrition, as it pertains to our community. And today, got a nice story. I wouldn't say a nice story, but a very sobering story when it comes to the USDA. Before I get into this USDA story, I want y'all to look at this banner right here. 1 million black shovels, 4321. That's the movement. That's the movement. 4321, April 3rd, 2021. We're trying to have 1 million people plant something at the same time. And we want to, this is going to be our live event. We want everybody to plant something. You don't have to go and plant 20 acres. We can just plant a seed in a cup, but we got to get growing. We got to get growing. We got to get growing. Okay. Now, today's story is about the USDA, and this department has long been known to a lot of black farmers as the last plantation. Now, even though the slaves were freed on January 1st of 1863, the USDA, with their discriminatory practices, have become known as the last plantation. And a lot of black farmers have had to suffer in silence uh, under that oppression because people just don't know or don't care. But also, as we're going to show you today, the USDA just lied. They just inflated numbers and distorted narratives to make you think that everything was great and that there was actually a resurgence in black farmers while the numbers took a great nosedive. So that's the daily bread we're going to bring for you today. This bread is it's hot and it might be a little hard to bite, but we're gonna chew it today. So Farmer Brown, what do you have to tell the people today about this USDA and how they're known as the last plantation?
Right before your very eyes, you won't even visualize. You can't see me. What we think we're looking at isn't what it is. That's hard to make your mind wrap around. Before there was written alphabets, before there were languages, our minds, focused around symbols, triangles. This might represent a mountain. Waves will represent water. This was a universal language, symbols. When you get into graphic arts, I know the people out there that's gotten into graphic design understand the triangle concept, law of thirds, and all of this. But visuals make a big difference in how one is able to navigate through uncharted territory. This is how you're able to lay a landscape and get a general idea of where you're at. When we think about today, the concept of media serves as this symbol. Though here, what we'll call the West, North America, we read articles, we see letters, we see words and videos. It's still the symbols that not only inform us of what we think we're looking at, but it also is going to ultimately affect our behavior and action items around what we're looking at. And so real quick, first, I like to say peace to the family. Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. This is a serious conversation we need to have. I've been working in extension now for going on 5 years. There's a lot of things I experienced firsthand, a lot of narratives, people I've met. I've heard a lot of stories, heard a lot of success stories, but I've also heard a lot of disparaging stories where people, like you said, are suffering in silence. That is one of the most miserable feelings in the world. You're going through a real experience. You're going through a real battle that, not only benefits the farmer, not only benefits the producer who just wants to make use of their land, pass down general wealth, but that helps the community. That helps the consumers that he or she is producing food for. And so when you're facing all of these obstacles that the community that you're intentionally trying to serve, they're not aware of these obstacles we fight. And so what happens, you find yourself isolated trying to fight a behemoth of policies, a behemoth of paperwork, of bureaucracy. It's just an avalanche of bureaucracy. Hey, these resources are here for you, but you got to jump over this hoop. And the person who's standing at this hoop might not like you. I can't control that because I'm controlling 50 states. There's 3 million farmers, 3.5 million farmers. And so it's real easy to slip through the cracks. And so when you look at our numbers, black farmers and producers in North America represent 1.4%. It's real easy to fall through the cracks. I can speak from personal experience here in Kentucky, our journey in trying to figure out ways to just connect with black farmers, create networks. It's like we've said before, it's like trying to find a leprechaun, and you realize all of the nuances and justify reasons why these dynamics exist. When you get into a story like we're going to dig into today, you realize that not only are there just, regular social issues that happen. There was a time when we felt like, hey, we want to go up north, or we want to go into the cities. We want to go into urban areas and live that urbanite life. That was one thing. When we think about rap music, the impact that rap music has had, not just rap, but pop music, R&B, our overall valuation of what's important in life changed over time. And so when you realize that a tax-funded agency such as the USDA actively took part in not only not helping, benign neglect of these black farmers, you realize that there was actually nefarious activity almost akin to an attack taken on black farmers. And so once again, I would challenge the viewer to put yourself in the mindset of somebody. I have 100 acres, 50 acres, 10 acres of family land that we've had for 50 years. To be productive in an industrial age, you know, maybe their great-grandparents had this. It was just sustenance farming. I know the family I come up from in South Louisiana, it was commercial farming. But I don't have access to that land anymore. It was sold for a Cadillac. It was 40 acres. And so, you know, how many of those stories do we have just within North America where land was either sold or nefariously usurped? And then after that, for people who were able to keep a hold of their land, you know, you have to work through your government. You know, if you agree to be in a democracy, organized nation, corporation, however you see it, then you have to agree that, okay, there are certain rules we abide by. To play by these rules, there's certain pipelines, there's certain resources. As a taxpayer, you know, somebody that's a landowner, you're paying taxes on your land. And so you assume that you can go to your local cooperative extension office. You assume that you can reach out to either your state agricultural department or the federal, and there's going to be assistance there. And so if you can imagine, for decades, I wouldn't say starting in the 20s, but, you know, since the 20s, we've seen a sharp decline in the participation of Black farmers, down from 900,000, we'll say closer to 1 million, to only about 33,000 today. And a lot of this was because of either benign neglect of resources or flat out nefarious attacks in local agencies and individuals involved. And so this is I'm not going to say great time, because it's not great. This is a very important time to have this conversation as consumers. What can we do to support these people that we'll be discussing during this conversation?
Now we've seen that Farmer Brown just mentioned that since the 1920s, there's been a sharp decline from almost 1 million Black farmers to now where we're around 33,000. And now the things that the USDA has done, now the story comes from The Counter, and they did a 2-year investigation on the USDA. And even they found that the USDA, even under Barack Obama, these were some of the things that they found the USDA to be guilty of when it comes to marginalizing Black farmers and putting them out of business. The USDA employees foreclosed on Black farmers with outstanding discrimination complaints. So you complain about the discrimination, and the USDA came around like Debo and just foreclosed on your farm. Okay. At the same time, the USDA staff threw out new complaints and misrepresented their frequency while continuing to discriminate against Black farmers. The department sent a lower share of loan dollars to Black farmers than it had up under President Bush. So the USDA up under Obama, you know, they actually spent less money on Black farmers than they did actually up under George Bush. Think about that. And then they use the census data in misleading ways to just to embellish its record on civil rights. It's very upsetting to me. You know, my grandfather was a farmer. I grew up farming with my grandfather here in South Georgia. And just to know that the government is actively being discriminatory against you and taking your land and making your life hard, and then like, who are you going to complain to? You have nobody to talk to. There's nobody talking about it. It's like nobody cares about the farmers. So they've literally had to suffer in silence and take this abuse. And we here at B1AG, we want to talk about everything agriculture, and we got to reverse this, because actually the Black farmers are key to our lifeline. You know, they're the ones that produce the food, and there's a need for increased food production now more than ever, especially in our community. And the silence has to end, and the suffering definitely has to end, and we got to get these shovels in the ground. Farmer Brown, what you got to say?
I'm gonna go briefly, man, over a story of a gentleman I met. It's about 3 years ago now. I'm not gonna say his name. We'll just call him Mr. G. He stays in one of the counties surrounding, one of the counties in central Kentucky. And Mr. G has to be closer to 90 than 80 now. He's one of those old school black men, real stern, real stoic, real serious, real straight to the point. And he had reached out to our organization, Black Soil, to get some help. And so, like I said, he was aging, and he happened to live, his family land happened to be on a place where there's a national historic site. There's a historic church right by a historic river in this county. And he was reaching out trying to find some legal help, because what's been happening over the past, I think he said 40 years, 20 years, there's been this slow encroaching on their land. They started out with 400 acres, and it was now down to 200. This was as a result of slow encroaching by neighbors who just wanted that land. And ultimately, according to him, the state that wanted this historic site. And he had gone to every agency locally in the county, in the city, in the county, and the state. He had sent his case, and I looked over all the paperwork. This wasn't a mad black man. This was a gentleman. He had a few siblings, and he was telling us the stories of how his siblings were dying fighting this fight, because what will happen is the neighbors will be coming onto his land, slowly cutting down timber. Timber has value. Slowly marking off the boundaries to where it's slowly just minimizing his land. Anytime he would take it to court, the court would always rule in favor of the neighbor. And so he reached out talking about trying to find some black lawyers in the state of Kentucky or the Commonwealth of Kentucky to address this case. He said he went through 2, and each time the lawyers dropped the case. They got a little bit into it, and they just dropped the case like, sir, I can't do this for you. And these are black lawyers. Mind you, this has been actually longer than 20 years, but, as far as when he brought us in, as far as the timeline, it's been the last 20 years. He has the money, and he talks about, our family is fortunate. We got some money that we can try to fight this. But saying that to say, his case reached the FBI. I saw the documents. He reached out to the FBI, and they responded, well, we can't help unless there's a homicide. It's sad. He expressed he lost his brother fighting this fight. Stress. We're trying to protect our property. We're old gentlemen. He has 2 daughters. One of them both of them live out of town. One in Florida, one in Texas. I think the one in Texas is going to come back and live on the property. But Mr. G is aging, and he understands the value, because it's not only a historic church. He owns a very valuable place. And, in his heart, he wants to help the community. But it's like, okay, I'm trying to help the community, but I'm paying hundreds of thousands trying to fight something that I thought I had a government, I thought I had a protective layer to save me from. And as I'm reaching out to you for help, it's benign neglect. You're leaving me alone. This is kind of like some of these stories on here, but it's one of those things. If I'm in a city, I'm trying to survive in the hood setting, the concrete jungle. We kind of become oblivious to these larger fights, because what Mr. G represents, and you can't claim anybody's land or repurpose somebody's land for your own benefit. But when we talk about gentrification, when we talk about this conversation specifically around our situation, if we do get moved out of these cities because of high rent, because of high property prices, where are we going to go? A white landowner or any other ethnicity of landowner, by a law that we all agree to abide by, I don't have to let you live here. I don't have to let you set up shop here. A black farmer doesn't either, but when we do the odds of who has more of an interest in, if there is a situation where we have a groundswell of melanated families who are being dispersed from these cities, it would be the black farmers. We've discussed the Southwest Georgia project with the sister Shirley Sherrod. She's been a part of this fight actually under Vilsack during Obama's administration. And I would encourage some of the viewers to go check out Shirley Sherrod. There's been warriors at this fight for decades. I think she said she's been in for 40. And you're out here fighting a monster. It's one thing you're sparring with somebody that's your same size. Okay, I'm 100,000 there. I can even be a millionaire. I'm fighting with a millionaire. Okay, that's a fair fight. But I'm a small farmer. Only 1% of black farmers are even bringing in $1 million. And so you have these small farms, and 79% take in under 10,000. And so when we think about the concept of money talks, how are you going to go to any sort of war or have a fair or even conversation with the national with your national agricultural department? How are you going to go to war with your local or regional ag agencies when they have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of other farmers in each of these areas to deal with? And so that's the importance of B1AG. You know, there's a part of us that will hope that, hey, y'all realize y'all been kind of playing unfair. You know, can you do something about it? But then there's also an existential part of us that is supposed to survive to realize, okay, now I can only wait so long for some sort of help, some sort of assistance, some sort of reciprocation, some sort of reparation until we take some sort of action on our own. And so what B1AG is, how do we support Mr. G? Because if there's 33,000 farmers, still black farmers left in North America, and I would say it's less than that. And that kind of ties into this narrative that somehow we had a groundswell in the last 10 years of black farmers. What we had was a groundswell of articles talking about the few farmers that still exist. I don't know much, but I know our personal journey over the last 3 years trying to meet and connect black farmers in Kentucky, they die off. You know, when somebody dies, they don't necessarily report that to the USDA. According to whoever's keeping records, I assume this land is still here, so I'm going to document as such. Some of this land gets sold. The person buying it doesn't necessarily report, hey, this isn't a black-owned property anymore. And so there are some, I will give credit, there are some people in this field of different ethnicities that really want to help. But when you realize that it was baked into the system, it was baked into the original recipe to disparage a certain group of farmers, then you realize it's upon the community that these farmers come from to provide some sort of support. And when we're talking practically, that's consumer support. If I realize these farmers are struggling like this, okay, I'm struggling in the city too. I can't necessarily just afford to just give you money and donate, but are you growing something? I have a son, I have a daughter that needs to take advantage of one of these land grant programs at one of these universities. Is there a way that we can go to the city and get some summertime pay to have our kids learn on your property, and not just learn, but work with extension agents, work with tradesmen, work with professional farmers to produce on your land? And that's a very viable plan. But once again, it takes people. You know, things sound good, but it takes people that value the importance of how do we not only protect these farmers, but how do we make sure they protect their land? How do we make sure that there's a replacement group to be stewards of the land? We realize the monsters that we deal with. How much time do we spend talking about it versus doing something about it?
What I found very interesting in this article, they were talking about the Secretary of Agriculture during the Obama administration, Tom Vilsack. And like you said, there was an increase in stories about black farmers that were left. But what they used those stories to do was to whitewash the USDA's discriminatory practices. They try to make it go away and paint a different picture as if, everything is fine. And with this article, they said between 2009 and 2016, the USDA claimed to have made historic breakthroughs on civil rights as it pertains to black farmers and the oppressive treatment they've had to endure. The misleading narrative that they spun to us relied on trying to push 5 different myths. And these myths were: myth number 1, the USDA resolved a backlog of civil rights complaints from the Bush years. Myth 2, new civil rights complaints fell to record lows, which they didn't. Myth 3, USDA reduced funding disparities between black and white farmers. They didn't. We ain't getting no money. Myth 4, the number of black farmers increased. We talk about this every day here on B1AG. Then we need to increase the number of black farmers. We've gone from almost a million down to around 33,000. That's not increasing to me. And the final myth is that the Pickford settlement closed a painful chapter in our collective history. Now, the Pickford settlement again, deals with the oppression and discrimination against Black farmers. It still is going on, but we here at B1AG refuse to let them to continue to suffer in silence. So,
look at this. Think about what you just said about the article, this myth that there was suddenly a groundswell of Black farmers. So I log into Facebook, get Instagram notifications. And this is in real time. This is the length of time when we see these articles, these perceived wins. And I just seen about 40 ratchet things to, okay, Black farmers, okay, cool, turn up, and Cardi B, And so when you're addressing something as serious like this with a few seconds, I mean, think about the literal impact that has. All I have to do is present this image, this symbol that there's success. Personally, in my journey, I've seen a lot of sadly, a lot of melanated family. Sister Vicky Diller will call them Butter Biscuit Crew, WOM, League of Mammies. And so there's a lot of people that will jump in front of a camera, and these are well-meaning people. We need to be represented. We need our faces seen on media. We need to be in the room having these discussions. And one of the either intended or unintended consequences is there's this false sense of progress. There's a whole nother conversation to be had about even the dynamics within that as far as, different members of the community. But this is a real thing. If I can convince just a handful of you to feel good, and this is nationally, I just need a handful of you to feel good enough to come and take this picture, to come, talk on this article with us about what is the progress you're making. So even if I have $1 million operation, which I absolutely don't, but even if I do, that pales in the bucket of a $1.7 trillion industry that you've been shut out of for a century, if not longer. And so I think, once again, even more than the legislation, even more than the powers that be, if we're operating in this world with a false narrative of what's going on, and we realize, like, when the last time you went to a newspaper and saw an article about Black farmers, really? Be honest, you see stories about Black farmers because we're online. We're on the internet. It might come across the timeline. In my job, I obviously get all the publications from USDA, whatever programs, funding, resources for farmers, but I'm an extension agent. The average person, I think there's about 4 Black male extension agents in Kentucky now. And so saying that to say the average person isn't just getting bombarded with agricultural information. So once again, if we as a community value this, then the same way the Root, the Atlantic, all of these other news sources outside of these feel-good stories, which are good. Let me not disparage the beauty in just telling a good story. People need to see success stories, but at the same time, these success stories need to be followed with not only I'm not going to say arbitrary action items like grow a garden, which is what we say. We say grow a garden, but there's so much more than that if we want to address what we're talking about now, this federal level discrimination. Because that's not going to be addressed with a handful of people saying, oh, yeah, we're making a change. And so we really have to look at practical solutions. And like I say, that's as simple as, first of all, work with your local land grant institutions. Especially, I would suggest in the Southeast. It's one of those things. Okay, you said you're going to do this. Well, let me call you on it. Right now, the Black family, the melanated family in North America, in my modest opinion and observation and experience, we're not poised to really push our narrative forward when it comes to agriculture. Not just food security. We were talking the other day about environmental justice. Not just that, but actually being a part of this economy, this agricultural economy. 0.04% of any sector is horrible. And so for that to work, we as a community can't depend on other communities to feel pity for these farmers who's going through this. We as a community have to value. Let me take a little bit of time to reach out to my local cooperative extension office. Ask them specifically, do you have a list of Black farmers? They may be classified as minority, but I would suggest be very specific. Is there a list of Black farmers in the counties that you cover? If so, do they, who's producing what? Do they have CSA shares? Are they involved in the farmer's market? Can you connect me with one? And so this is on a consumer level. Once again, if you read through the Farm Bill, you realize that there's a big bag right now in ag education, urban ag education. And so once again, when I think about a Mr. G, okay, he's in his 80s, and so he's not going to be out there farming, but he's expressed an interest in wanting his land to be used for education. He understands the value of, okay, I have this asset. You know, my daughters aren't really into it. I think he has one grandson. Think about family lineage. Think about how we can be wiped out if we're not very, very intentional and concise on how we address this. So saying that to say there's lots of acres of land where, you know, there's elder people like, hey, I want somebody to learn something out here. I want somebody to benefit from this experience out here, whether, you know, you're leasing some land for me to produce something, just in case in the situation you're not able to get the financing to get your own land. And I want to teach your youth. We've seen a whole summer of virtual learning. I think this is ripe right now for people that are interested in educating at home, people that are interested in, you know, getting their kids involved in agriculture. This is a great time, once again, to meet these farmers who are already doing it. Because I meet a lot of people that get excited when you first bring it up and you put it into context. But if I'm in the hood, I'm paying rent, you know, I got a mortgage at the house I'm already at, I got my job. Maybe I can't get out to the farm to work and just, you know, absorb the air every day. But there are these specific action items I can take that will not only protect, you know, the people who have fought this hard fight. This has been a hard fight, but also prepare a protection layer. Going back real quick, and I don't want to talk your head off, going back with this with the two lawyers that Mr. G had come across. The black lawyers, I didn't want no piece of it, because guess what? You're loyal to who pays your bag. You're loyal to who pays you, who feeds you, literally and metaphorically. You're loyal to who feeds you. And so these lawyers, you know, their first obligation is to the bar. And so, and I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but I imagine if it's a general understanding, we don't touch these areas. Because when we were growing up, we were told, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion. And me, you know, I'm just like, why? This seems like the most important things affecting our outcomes. And so me, I didn't know. I wasn't supposed to talk about it. So saying that to say, agriculture is one of those hidden, it's one of those hidden dynamics within this country that it was ultimately what built the wealth of North America. You can't say it was nothing else. It was not the automotive industry. That added on to an agricultural base that was built from our ancestors. If we realize we have that power and potential just through epigenetics, how do we apply that now with our lived experience of integration, our lived experience of understanding capitalism? There's people like Dr. Boyce, Dr. Claude Anderson that, like, I have the model. And so how do we codify this around the basic things we want and need after we've secured our food, clothing, and shelter? When we talk about your construction companies, which black construction companies aren't getting these contracts. Because once again, outside of these little articles we scroll through, there isn't any grassroots. I'm not going to say there's none, but we haven't reached a critical mass of support of these grassroots efforts to really connect these people and support them. Not just with my likes and shares. I can't go to the tractor supply store and buy a farm implement to compete with your likes and shares. But if I had X amount of people, you know, there's some cities we have millions of melanated folks that have to eat. And so if we can galvanize percentages of these people to intentionally support the black farmers in their area, we then now build a base that can go to Vilsack. Purdue was the last one under Trump, and whoever is the next one. These are our tangible, when we have this conversation of reparations, because it's not going to stop, it's going to continue. But the thing is, the longer we don't have a codified, specific ask, and not just ask, hey, this is what we're doing. You know, whether you support this or not, this is what we're doing. And we want to be a part of this experiment in democracy. But we need a voice in this, and we see that this isn't something you ask for. You can't ask for power. Power is gained through energy, exertion of energy. And so if we can codify not only our spending energy, our thought energy, you know, our energy, you know, the vitriol we have towards one another right now, let's get angry at these forces. If nothing else, if we must express this anger, let's get mad at this fight that these black farmers, the Mr. G's of the world, the Shirley Sharads of the world, are fighting almost by themselves. Because I can tell you, and I'm going to shut up, You put yourself in a situation, you're in a rural county in Maryland, in Virginia, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and you realize the majority of people who actually spend their dollars with my operation, who I'm barely surviving, are white. Or even if they're black, you know, they might be religious and not really into the whole black thing. You've now limited, unintentionally, you've limited your base of support because, you know, I'm stepping on toes. I want you to shop with me. And I realize if I offend you, you know, if I seem to be affiliated with something that's radical, you might not shop with me. I feel the Black Power movement, but hey, you know, I got to keep this land. And so if we as a people kind of outside looking in can understand this plight, you know, let me not get you in trouble, Mr. Jones, Mr. G. What can we do from where we stand to make it rain on your property, to make it rain on your operation, to maybe be able to support your daughter that might not have understood the value of land, but there was a replacement crew to help her as she's coming into ownership of that land? Because Mr. G represents a small percentage of Black landowners, and it continues to decline.
For far too long, these Black farmers and Black landowners have had to fight alone. B1AG, what's going on? Are y'all ready to help join this fight? And this is a fight where you don't have to necessarily throw fisticuffs. You don't have to drop kick anybody. Just grow something. Just grow something. Plant some seeds in the ground. Grow something. Teach your kids how to grow. Encourage your kids to get into agriculture. Just encourage them to get into it, to learn about it. Growing food is a survival skill. A survival skill. Let's not take farming and gardening and this knowledge for granted. It is a survival skill and the foundation of any civilization. Because if you don't eat, you're going to die. So let's not take that for granted. We don't need a Birkin bag to live. We don't need some Jordans to live. Nah, but you need something to eat. You need some clean water to drink. You know, these are necessities. So let's get back to covering our bases with the basics, you know, of necessities, and especially beginning with the knowledge of farming and agriculture. And
hey, bro, have you ever seen a justice plant?
No, what's a justice plant?
Have you ever seen an equity fruit?
What it tastes like?
It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. This is once again, these are the tricknology that these farmers deal with. I see this configuration of words on this paper that you told me to fill out. I just told you my whole operation. And so maybe it might be 10 of you and 9 of you want to help me. 9 of you, when you go to work in the morning, I just want to help whoever comes in my office to help me. All it takes is 1 of you to get my information I just gave you to have the perfect, I know exactly where to stop you at. Because you came to me for this funding because you ain't got a community that supports you. So all it takes is 1. But that goes both ways. When we deal with the law of compensation, all it takes is 1 masterminded person to be like, you know what this farmer is going through over here, these farmers are going through over here, it's something I know about just my dealings in an urban setting. You know, sometimes in my utopian imagination, I think about if you had East Coast, and I mean, we got hustlers all over the country, but I think when you're in an East Coast environment, say like a New York, it breeds a whole different type of aggression when it comes to, I got no time to be emotional with you, I got no time to talk, yo, done, where's the bag? If there was some way to mix that energy, with the Southern exertion of I'm a producer, I make things happen, right? Because all of these are economy. The Civil War, right? A lot of this had to do with economy. It wasn't about freeing anybody. And if you could apply that exertion, that fire flame of, no, we're going to make this happen. I'm going to get it. You know, instead of me trying to control this block, making a Carter of this block, no, I'm a purchase or help support people who already own blocks of this land in the Black Belt region, down in the Deep South. because I'm in New York, and I know I'm in a community full of people that eat this particular thing. I'm gonna work with some people to create a distribution network up the East Coast. And these things exist, but once again, how do we water them? Do you send out flyers? I know we've been sending out the B1AG flyer. I'm not going to say a shadow ban because I just don't know these things. But it's very interesting when you take efforts to consolidate efforts. There's impediments that, hey, we don't own the internet. We don't have our own networks as of now. You know, this is why the Black Boss channel is platinum. But until we do, what are real life action items we can take to support these groups? And so I just want to reiterate, like I said, what you can do locally now, wherever you're at, if you're watching, figure out what is the land grant institution close to you, and find the cooperative extension office. Through them, you'll be able to find some of the larger Black farmers who actually do reach out for help, because through your extension office, you're going to get production tips. You're going to get research-based information. Some offices actually have equipment. And so that is a good database to see who's actually producing. I would encourage people to go to a farmer's market. The deeper south you go, you'll have more melanated family at these farmers markets. But as far as like in your Midwest region, you might be lucky to find a Black person here and there. But go to a farmer's market. Once again, there's groups on Facebook and Instagram just around Black farmers nationwide for one, Black Farmers United. Look up people like John Boyd. And so there are resources to just really identify who's who and where are they. How can I support you? I'm not about to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in your operation, brother or sister, but I'll spend $500 a year with you. I'm going to spend it at Kroger, Costco, Publix anyway. And so I'm going to make sure I reach out and find you. I can say in Central Kentucky, we have a network of at least 20 consistent producers and 60 value-added and producers, Black, in the state of Kentucky. We have our ups and downs, right? But within this network, I'm seeing from ground level, seeing it face to face how these networks are able to strengthen each person's operation. Obviously, we all want the bag. I have these two people running around. As they grow, they're going to need to eat more. So we want to increase the bag, but a part of increasing that bag is increasing our network value. Now, this is how we're going to be if we don't take advantage right now of the economic power we still hold, of the few Mr. G's that exist around North America that still have land. Your Nuri Rashids in the Atlantas, you think about real quick the story we talked about, Atlanta's food forest. These are all discussions that we need to have. Each person, wherever you're at, you're going to internalize something. You're going to get this seed, and it's going to grow conducive to the environment you're in. We just want to grow apples. An apple's going to grow different down there in Georgia where you're at than it is in Kentucky. We know it's an apple. And so I'm going to have to apply my mitigation strategies and nurturing strategies different. The goal is for us to have apples to eat because apples are nutritious. And so this B1AG concept, once again, is code. When you plug this code in the wall, when you type this code into your psychological computer, it always works. You can never go wrong supporting somebody that produces something that you consume. And so it's the degree of time and effort we take to really identify these people wherever we're at, whether you're in the deep south, whether you're up north. Where are the people that are producing? One of the goals of B1AG, if you're watching and you're a producer right now, reach out. If there's 5 more people, and this is how strong, this is how deep it is. It might be 5 people watching now, and out of that 5, 1 in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm in rural Knoxville, outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. And because I saw this program that I know people watch, I know people know Dr. Boyce, the whole crew, Jeff Lightsey. I'm going to get my friends to come around and watch this, right? And so that helps that network. At the same time, because I know I got all my friends to watch this, I've added value to my operation. Now, as a farmer can see, we take it for granted, right? We're used to seeing streams where people getting tens of thousands of views. All it takes is a handful of new customers to make it rain on this random farmer in Knoxville, just because of using a social media outlet that, okay, if I'm out in rural Tennessee, I might not even have internet. But when I do go in the city and get on my phone, I do watch the Black Boss channel, and I'm gonna pass it to my friends. And because my friends had networks, we got more customers. Between these customers, we got each of them spent X amount of hundreds of dollars more a year with our operations. This is how we make it rain on one another. And if Secretary Vilsack, if the United States government, if the local governments decide to do their due diligence as servants of the people, then great. That only enhances. That gives us the extra fertilizer for our operations. But in a situation where it doesn't, we need an organic approach. We need an organic approach yesterday.
Well, B1AG, there it is. We've told you about how the USDA is known as the last plantation. Slavery was ended January 1st, 1863. But the USDA has been one of the last standing fortresses that have been used to oppress Black people, especially Black farmers around. No, we face discrimination in all parts of our life, all facets of our life. But what often gets overlooked is the discriminatory practices that our Black farmers have had to endure, and not just discrimination, but also just the straight up theft of their land, which is the theft of our generational wealth. So let's get to growing. We do have our campaign, 1 million shovels in the ground. 4, 3, 2, 1, that's the countdown. Let's take part. You're going to see more advertisements about it. We want you to really take part in it because it's very important. It's very important. It's very important. It's very important. 1 million black shovels, 4, 3, 2, 1, that's the countdown. We need to have 1 million people plant something at the same time on April 3rd, 2021. That day, there will never, ever, ever be another 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's make this day special. Let's give back to Mother Earth. Let's cultivate our local food systems, and let's put more thought and consideration into our Black farmers, Black agriculture, teaching our kids, making sure our kids know how to grow something. And also, let's just put more thought into survival. Let's put more thought into survival. Let's live intentionally. Let's live intentionally. Got anything else? Got any last words for him, Farmer Brown? It's been some good daily bread. This daily bread, I'm feeling kind of full today. I might need to put some more jelly on that bread, man.
Just Pirates 4, 3, 2, 1. This is so much deeper than just acute activity. We need some codified approaches. I was just listening to a podcast with Nilly Fuller. He's talking about what's the plan, man? What's the plan? We're talking. We know that there's problem. What's the plan? 1 million shovels, 4, 3, 2, 1. It isn't the end all be all, but is it possible in a ever speeded up world? Is it possible for us to do the same? A million of us to do the same thing at the same time, engage in the same activity. I might be at work and just let me take my 10-minute break now at 12 o'clock noon on Eastern time on 4, 3, 2, 1. And this is Saturday, so a lot of people be off. Let me go outside and I got my cup with me and I'm gonna just plant this seed. And I'm going to put it on my desk. That might be it. I might be a program director and have a group of kids. Hey, we're going to start our community garden anyway. Hey, what a great way to galvanize, have a cool activity where we're going to live stream this and let the world see it, right? Flood the timelines of Instagram, Facebook, YouTube of people having a good time planting something. And, my thing, I would have my children obviously watching this. This would change their mind when we think about the concept of imagery, this law of thirds principle, the power of what the USDA realized. Hey, if we just put these nice feeling stories out, it'll have an outcome. There's a codified outcome of making you feel good about yourself. How great would it be if it's a grassroots effort where nobody had to give us a grant? This is a non-transactional activity, meaning it don't cost you nothing. You could register at Eventbrite at the 1 million black shovels, or just, you make it something valuable to you at this time on 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to spend 10 minutes doing this. When I look in the mirror, the thing I see before I open my mouth, this is in honor of those, the Mr. G's, the Shirley Sherrods, the many black farmers throughout history who didn't have a social media to talk about their battle that they're fighting. Because make no mistake, these aren't victims. Any black farmer you meet, they would never see themselves as a victim. These are our warriors. These are our warriors. These are our gladiators. And so 1 million black shovels, if not for yourself, turn up for the legacy of black agriculturalists in what we call North America. 4321, 12 noon Eastern time, 11 Central, 10 Mountain time, 9 Pacific. 4, 3, 2, 1, game time.
There it is. Y'all hear it? So, as we like to end every show, we just want to let you know that our code, our motto, if you really want to know something, tell them what they got to do. What they got to do, Farm Brown. If they really want to know something,
what we got to do. If you really want to know something, let's get together, people, get this bag and learn how to grow something.
Grow something. Yes, sir. All right. B1AG, we're out. Take care.